Hi, and welcome to On the Couch Conversations with Brenda Porter. Please take the time to comment below, like us, and subscribe. On this platform, I have the opportunity to sit down with those in the industry and talk to them about what they do, how they do it, and how they feel. Today's guest is
Kerwin Thompson.
Kerwin is a native of Atlanta. He began acting when he was 5 years old. He is currently starring as King Silas in The Quest on Disney Plus. The leading man, as he prefers to be called, learned the Freddie Hendrix method of acting from Freddie Hendrix himself. He's also a film TV student of Christine Horn, the booking magnet. Kerwin's journey to Hollywood was paved by performances from Impact Theater and Dominion Entertainment to Synchronicity and Aurora Theater to Triage Stage in Jonesburg, North Carolina. And you can also catch him as Lawrence Clutterbuck on South Side on HBO Max. Welcome, Kerwin.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So I am very excited for you. I don't usually start with the next project that people are working on, but I'm going to talk about your project first. Tell us a little bit about this fabulous King project.
Yeah. So I earned the casting. I was not say like fortunate to play. No, I earned it. Earned the casting of King Silas in the new TV show called The Quest that is on Disney Plus, which I'm just absolutely over the moon about. It's a balance of a scripted and an unscripted type of show. So if you can imagine Lord of the Rings meets The Amazing Race and merge those two, that's what you get. And it's set in medieval times or in a medieval type of fantasy world. So that's fun to play, and I'm just excited about not just the opportunity to have my Black face shown in a medieval setting, but to actually be sitting on the throne, which is something that I never saw as a kid. So, I took that responsibility very, very seriously to represent for the culture, represent well. I've got little Black boys and girls and brown boys and girls looking up at me, at 7, 8 years old, and seeing a Black person in a medieval show and a Black person on the throne is going to be normal for them. Whereas I never saw that as a kid, and I loved Lancelot and King Arthur and blah, 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 blah. And I was always like, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. But I never saw any Black people doing it. So it was very much like, when President Obama was elected, right? Prior to that, all we knew is that we never had a shot at the presidency. Your parents said, you can do anything you want. You can be anything you want to be if you work hard in this world, except president, right? That's how we grew up. Shirley Chisholm didn't have a chance of winning. Jesse Jackson didn't have a chance of winning. So we grew up thinking that we never had a shot of excelling that high until President Obama changed that for us. And on a smaller scale, I hope to do the same thing in fantasy.
So your king, he's a good guy?
He is a good guy. Mm-hmm.
Yay.
He's a good guy who's currently in a horrible situation, including my kingdom of Aura, which I rule over. But we all bend the knee to the King of Sanctum, which happens to be my older brother. And the show starts out in great turmoil. The Kingdom of Sanctum is under siege by an evil sorceress named Tavora, and she kills my brother. That's in the opening scene. Yeah. So now all of Everrealm is under attack by this evil sorceress. Silas does not have time to mourn his brother because he's too busy defending the rest of Everrealm and taking care of King Magnus's children, the heirs to his throne. They are under my care. So I've got all these things, juggling in the air. But Silas is a fascinating character. His older brother Magnus, he's the warrior. He's the big guy. He's the warrior of the two. And Silas is more diplomatic. He's a warrior in and of himself, but he's more of a diplomat, and people like him. His royalty, his lineage to the throne is for sanctum. He's king of Aura because he married into that royal family of Aura. And his wife has already passed. Before the show opens, that's his backstory. So King Silas's wife has already passed. They didn't have any children, right? But he has ingratiated himself to the people of Aura. They all love him, and they agreed to allow him to be their king after his wife, who was the queen, passed away. So he's managing all of these crises all at once without having an opportunity to mourn the loss of his brother. I'm not gonna spoil too much more, but I wanted to give you some backstory. But they dropped all 8 episodes at one time, so you don't have to wait a week to see the next episode when you're like, I wonder what's gonna happen next. I wonder what you can just pray. Next episode.
That's an unusual thing to do.
It is. It happens every now and then, but it is unusual. And I think I'm guessing now, I don't know, but I think the reason why they dropped all 8 episodes at one time is to try to get back in time on the right production schedule, because we had so many delays because of COVID. And I think what they want to do was, drop all 8 episodes at once so that they can accelerate the process of evaluation to see whether or not we'll get renewed for a second season. I think that's the motivation.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And people binge watch all the time anyway,
And this is a fun one to watch. Get the kiddos together, and all the adults who like Renaissance fairs and medieval times and cosplay and all that other stuff. They'll love the show.
Well, I'm very happy for you. Congratulations. Well deserved. Well, at what point did you say, okay, I've been here, I've been doing this, now I need to go? What was that impetus to go? I gotta go. And why LA and not New York?
All due respect to New Amsterdam, I don't like New York City. I just don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. The weather is terrible. There's no space. People are all crunched up on each other. And I think the combination of no space and bad weather makes people grumpy and irritable. So it's like, it never feels good. Like, I go to New York, I'll visit 2 or 3 days, and I gotta be out. I don't like it. So that's why, LA and not New York. But when I turned pro as an actor in 2014, TV and film was always the goal for me. That's what I wanted to do. I've been acting on and off since I was 5 years old, but it was for fun, and keep me out of trouble type of things. And when I turned pro in 2014, I hadn't been performing, I think, for like 9 years. I'd taken like a 9-year break. So I was like, okay, TV and film is the goal, but when we get there, we want to be great at it. So let's go back to theater, because in my opinion, the real talent is in theater. Let's go back to theater. We're going to sharpen these skills for 5 years. I gave myself a 5-year plan. We're going to do as much theater work as we can. We're going to sharpen these skills, and then we're going to jump into this TV and film game, and we're going to kill it. That was my mindset. I say the talent is in the theater because, as you know, it's just a whole nother level of preparation and preparedness and concentration and focus necessary for theater than in TV and film. Because in theater, there ain't no take 2s or take 27s. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got all day to get it right. You got one shot. And if something goes wrong, you got to figure out a way to make it make sense and make it work. You got to be quick on your feet, and you have to know the whole script at one time instead of like scene for scene or episode for episode. You got to know it all. That's an elevated level of professionalism in theater, in my opinion. So that's why I went, back into theater for 5 years before transitioning to TV and film. My 5-year plan turned into 5.5 years. And at the 5.5-year point, that's when the pandemic hit and shut everything down anyway. So I couldn't do theater if I wanted to. So I took that time. I was like, okay, all right, we haven't checked all the boxes. We haven't appeared on all the stages that we wanted to. We knocked on all the doors. Some of them just didn't open. Are we just going to continue to just sit here and wait for them to open doors for us? Or are we going to move on? I had built up a reasonably impressive resume in 5.5 years. And I was like, you know what? If they're not going to open the doors, that's just their loss. It's time to go on. They're not the goal anyway. TV and film is the goal. So if that door is closed, just move on to the next door. And so I had that time to regroup, while the world was going crazy. I think 4 months after I got out here, I saw the breakdown for the quest on Actors Access. I found that audition myself. I was the only cast member in the show who did not have to pay an agent or a man. I found that joint myself on Actors Access, because I'm on there every day. I get, I think, 4 emails a day from Actors Access with breakdowns that I might be interested in. Found it myself and started the audition process. That audition process lasted 3 months. I had 5 different auditions for that show. So it was a long, grueling process.
But you could have stayed in Atlanta and found that audition here.
Absolutely. In that particular case, yes.
And, you went out there for movies, but movies moved to Atlanta.
Yeah. Let me tell you how that game works.
Okay, tell me how that game works.
We've got to educate this industry to let them know that we have got some serious talent in Atlanta and some true professionals in Atlanta. The casting directors and agencies, they don't respect Atlanta talent. They think that New York and LA are the bee's knees, and that's it. But they don't realize that everybody who's in New York and LA ain't from New York and LA. We've had so many actors who've had to leave Atlanta and go to New York and LA just to be cast and stuff in Atlanta to get the bigger roles. Now they'll give the crumbs from the table, they'll give those to the Atlanta actors, but the big meaty roles, they go to actors in LA or in New York, not in Atlanta. And a lot of those actors are from Atlanta, and then they come back to work in Atlanta. There's actors right now who are working in Atlanta who are from Atlanta but don't live in Atlanta no more because they wouldn't get those opportunities. They're working in Atlanta right now. Since I've been gone, I've come home 5 or 6 times to do gigs in Atlanta, commercials, industrials, that type of thing.
Wow.
It's nuts. We've got to re-educate the industry.
But you would think that if they begin to realize that, oh, you're from Atlanta originally, you're from Atlanta originally, you're from Atlanta originally, oh, you're from Atlanta originally, they would begin to go, oh, Atlanta produces good talent. I mean, that's how when people in the theater, people would go, oh, he graduated from NYU. He graduated from NYU. Oh, he graduated from Yale. They put out good people consistently, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So why don't they do that in film? Because there are a bunch of us working, period.
I think some people don't want to know, and I think some people are creatures of habit. They just do what they know. They keep doing that. It just may be incumbent upon us, and I got to think about how to do this. Maybe we just need to put together like a summit of Atlanta actors, have us all on the stage and have it broadcast like all over the world and be like, yo, this is us. We're dope and we're from Atlanta and we just the tip of the iceberg. Y'all missing out on talent. Just like the set designers, the set scouts, the people who scout sets, right? They're tired of using the same sets in LA and in New York, and they start finding, new places in Carolina and Alabama. The new Wonder Years is shot in Montgomery, Alabama, because they're tired. They've used all the New York and LA stuff. Well, same thing with the actors. You've used all the New York and LA actors. There is such a big resource of actors, great actors, talented actors in Atlanta that they are missing out on. Their projects could be so much better if they cast the A. They cast the A. That's just how I see it.
You have named yourself the leading man. Tell me about that.
So I am a big believer in the power of the spoken, and I was a smaller believer in manifesting, smaller than I am now. And I have learned about the power of manifestation and my ability to manifest the things that I want in my life. So when I turned pro 2014, ain't been on nobody's stage in 10 years, I dubbed myself Kerwin Thompson, the leading man. And you can see it on the bottom of my screen. That's just how I roll. And I knew that there were going to be some whispers and dark corners talking about who in the world the hell he think he is. Don't nobody know him from a can of paint. Do you know him? No, I don't know him. Oh, but he gonna call himself the leading man. Girl, boy, Let me go see what he's about. Let me see if he got any skill. I knew all that was going on. But my vision was to work in TV and film and not do extra work, not do day player work, not do just co-star and guest star work. You know, I want to be at the top of the marquee. I want to be the leading man. I want to be the person they paid $20 million a movie to, or $500,000 an episode to. I want to be that guy. I don't just want to be a participant. I want to be the lead dog. You know what they say in dog raising, right? If you ain't the lead dog, the view never changes. You know, so
that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. So I called myself that, number one, so that it was goal setting for me. And if I said it enough times, I was going to start to believe it. And if once I started to believe it, I could perform in that fashion. And then other people will see it, and they will hear it and see it, hear it and see it. And then they'll start to believe it. And then they'll start casting me as that. Okay. You know, that was the big master plan that was going on. But I've got to believe it first before anybody else will believe it. And then once they believe it, they'll start casting me as that. But it's also something that drove me to hold myself accountable, right? If I'm going to call myself the lead man, no matter what role I'm in, because they're not going to cast me as that starting off, whatever role I'm in, I got to kill it. I got to show up every night and I got to kill it. Whatever my role is, I have got to do it to the best of my ability. So when people come in talking about, let me see what this lead man gonna do. But when they leave, at worst, they're gonna be like, okay, all right. He's got a little skill. At worst, it's gonna be their reaction. Okay, all right then, all right. He's got some skill. All right, we'll see what he does next. And what I do next is kill it again. I tried to put together a resume where I did consistently good work and lived up to the billing.
Now, you took a 9-year hiatus, but your beginnings, you were at YEA, is that correct?
Absolutely. The first cast,
Ooh.
Freddie Hendricks Youth Ensemble of Atlanta, the original cast. But yeah, that was summer of 1991. And that summer, Brenda, changed my life in terms of what to do with my art. You know, I've been acting since I was 5, but I was 17 the summer of 91. So I'm aging myself for all the people. But up until that point, you know, acting was cutesy and it was fun and, you know, something to do. And, oh, look at the babies on stage. Look at them. Oh, they look precious. Didn't they do good? Yeah, they did good. That's what it was up until that point. And that summer, my brother and I were both in 2 shows together. We were doing Crisscross at the Civic Center. That was to celebrate the 500th anniversary of Christopher Columbus discovering America. So that was a big budget show. That was at the Civic Center. They sold out the Civic Center. You know how many seats were in the Civic? They sold out the Civic Center every day for a month. That's how big that show was. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Big budget show. The guy who created the Cabbage Patch Kids, who owns that brand, he was the executive producer behind it. So he was bringing in money from all over the place. So we had that going on. And then we'd run across town to the fledgling Youth Ensemble of Atlanta, who was in the Arts Exchange building on Boulevard. That building should have been condemned then. Like when it rained, the roof leaked on the best seats in the house. Center row, center seats, right? That's where we were. YEA writes its own shows, creates its own shows. And the first show that we did was a show called Rhymes and Reasons. And it's a show called a show about child abuse and surviving it. Didn't even get to the healing part of it, just surviving child abuse, right? So you got these kids on this show, on this stage, you know, from the ages of maybe 12 to 17, talking about child abuse, singing, acting, dancing, playing instruments. We're doing all that in this condemned building, you know, to, I don't know, that probably seated maybe about 200, 250 people, somewhere like there, somewhere around there, versus the Civic Center. And when we're done at the Civic Center, you know, it's uproarious applause. Roll, roll, and flowers are being thrown. And it's big uproar. The lights come. It's just magnificent. And we did our first show at the Arts Exchange about child abuse. And when we were done, at the very end, hold the pose. Freeze on you, Brenda. It was silent in that house. And we're looking at each other like, did we suck? Are we terrible? And then the house lights come up and there's not a dry eye in the house, including grown men. They were stuck. They could not clap. They could not applaud even if they wanted to. They were stuck. They were in tears. I didn't realize that. I just thought we could entertain people with our talents. I didn't realize we could touch people's lives and change people's lives and encourage people to start a conversation towards their healing or go get therapy towards their healing. I didn't realize that we could touch and heal people with these gifts. And from that point forward, I decided I'm not going to do cute no more. Once I realized that my talent could have that much of an impact on people, I decided I'm not going to do cute anymore. I'm not interested in Phantom of the Opera. Great show. Don't want to do it. Not interested in Cats. Great show. I don't want to do it. I want to do things that touch people, that impact people, make people feel something. That's my mission. And I'm grateful to Freddie Hendrix and the Youth Ensemble of Atlanta for showing me what's possible.
Out of that experience for Freddie came the Hendrix method.
Yes.
Which talk to us a little bit about how the Hendrix method differs from, some of the other methods that are out there.
Sure. You know what the old folks say? There's nothing new under the sun. We've heard that a lot. So I would call the Hendrix method a gumbo method. It includes Stanislavski, it includes Meisner, and all the other greats. Stanislavski wasn't the first one to think about his method. He didn't originate that. He's just the first one to put his name on it, right? But people have been using those techniques for centuries. Same thing with Meisner. There's nothing new under the sun. But Freddie's mantra that pretty much, in my opinion, sums up the Hendrix method is acting is doing is being is believing. Acting is doing is being is believing. Don't act, be. And if you be, people will believe. There's so many times we were in rehearsal performing, right? Performing a role. And Freddie would just stop everything. Fake, phony. That's what he would say. Fake, phony, do it again. And we'd go and we'd perform and we'd perform and we'd perform because we thought that's what acting was performing and being, and it has a certain rhythm and a certain cadence and cannon to the left and cannon to the right, performing. And Freddie was like, that ain't it. Acting is becoming another person and operating in their natural state. Jamie Foxx became Ray Charles. And 5 minutes into that movie, you forgot you were looking at Jamie Foxx. That's acting. Be that person. You don't have to be huge. Meryl Streep has never been huge on screen. She doesn't have a dominant presence on screen. She's not that. You just believe her when she speaks. Everything just comes off just natural and feels like a conversation that you're having with your best friend or your auntie or your sister or your teacher or your grandmother, whatever role she's playing. But it's very soothing, it's very calm, it's very natural, and it's not extra. But she becomes these people, and the underlying emotions are allowed to soar on her words. She doesn't have to perform the words. She just has to mean what she says, and we get it. And that's what her gift is. I think is relatability. When she speaks, we understand where she's coming from.
So
That's the
what's
hindrance.
next on the plate for you, bud?
Producing. Yeah. So yeah, I started my own production company a year ago, and I have teamed up with Tyrell Williams, who is a fantastic writer and director from the Ninth Ward of New Orleans. He came to Atlanta after Hurricane Katrina, so his family didn't evacuate, so he got caught up in that. So he was dealing with that and that trauma and that situation, and relocated to Atlanta, and has been doing great things with sound design on great projects and writing and directing. I've teamed up with him, and we are going to produce a short movie. It's a psychological thriller. It's going to be set in Gullah Geechee culture. So we're very excited about that. We're in the fundraising process of that. Everybody go to thefishingfilm.com and click on the donate button if you want to support that. So
That
we
fishing with a PH or an F?
With an F. On that website, you can see who we are, see our bios, see where we're planning on shooting, what the storyline is about, what the character breakdowns are, all the things you want to know about that film. You can find out on the website. But it was originally going to be like a buddy film and talk a lot about Gullah Geechee culture. But then we thought it. We didn't want it to feel like a documentary or a history lesson, you know? So I threw out some ideas, and Ty threw out some ideas, and we were like, let's make it a psychological thriller that just so happens to be set in Gullah Geechee culture. Let that be the backdrop of it, but not the story. We tell a different story in this different setting, this rich historical setting, and then have people leave that and be like, I never heard of no Gullahs or no Geechees. Let me go see what that's about. And then they start digging and be like, oh, okay, I get it. So we're going to make that, shoot it outside of Charleston, South Carolina, in an area that very much is like a bayou, in the Gullah Geechee corridor, and submit it to to all local, not all of them, but to international, national, regional, and local film festivals. And we'll see how it does.
If you could go back, what advice would you give your younger self?
Never quit. I have quit four things technically, but three categories. I've quit four things in my lifetime, and I regret every single one of them.
Really?
Every single one of them. Everything that I've quit in my life, I regret quitting it.
You don't feel like you quit them and learned from it, and it's helped to make you where you are, who you are?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I think about how much greater I could have been. But that's speculative. We'll never know if that would have ended at a higher place than where I'm going now, because maybe I never would have learned the difference between what it feels like to quit and to persevere. I know both sides of it, and so I had to develop toughness. I had to develop courage. Like, courage is not the absence of fear; it's moving despite it. That's what courage is. Doesn't mean you're not afraid. That means you don't let the fear stop you. That's what I would say. Never quit.
You mentioned that you and your brother acted together at YEA.
Mhm.
Do you plan on having any projects with the two of you acting together?
That is a great question. We don't have any current plans. but neither of us are opposed to doing it. And when we do, it'll be dynamic because we have natural chemistry. And when we get together, we are silly. We are silly. And we finish each other's sentences. We do routines, because when we grew up, you had the big set top TV, and then you had the little TV on top of it because the set box didn't work no more. Yeah, ABC, CBS, NBC, TBS, and WGN,
Wow.
and channel 46, right?
Yes.
Right. We had those 6 channels. And so the same movies would air over and over and over again. And we would watch the same movies over and over and over again. And so we became experts and parrots. And that's how we learned how to do imitations. And so we would just be parroting what we saw on TV. And now the way that we communicate, I would say 80% of the time, I don't text him and say, "Hey brother, how you doing? What's going on? Everything all right in your world?" That's maybe like 20% of our conversation. Most of the time, I would send him a random line from a random scene in a random movie. Just come out of left field with something. No good morning, no hey, how you doing? Just, "Good morning, my neighbors." And he would write back, "You." And I'd write back to him, "Yes, yes, you too." We would just do the whole scene back and forth. And then we just start something new. We just go from Coming to America to Big Trouble in Little China to Trading Places to Spies Like Us to Red Dawn. We just do random stuff like that, and it entertains us. And when he responds back with the next line and we finish the scene, I know my brother's fine. He's having a good day. Everything's all right.
Wow.
That's how we communicate. So I look forward to when we get to do something.
Kerwin, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I really, really appreciate you and appreciate it and the information you've shared today.
Thank you very much for having me.
You are more than welcome. If you've been watching today, please take the time to comment below, subscribe, and like us. And meanwhile, please keep the conversations going.
Let's have a heart-to-heart. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a heart-to-heart. Let's have a consultation. Let's have a heart-to-heart. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a heart-to-heart. Let's have a conversation. On the couch. On the couch.